Hello everyone, today we are starting the story of a goblin Chad who grows stronger every time he claps with a girl. This guy has luck as he reaps double benefits from clapping. Please hit like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. So let's get started. Darkness enveloped the damp cave, and the sound of terrifying screams echoed through the walls. The goblins were celebrating the death of their leader. One goblin with bloodshot red eyes went mad and declared himself the new leader. However, his comrade disagreed, believing that he had done the most work and should be the leader instead. Filled with envy and rage, he charged at his comrade, biting into the other's nose. The cave was now filled with chaos. Screams rang out more violently. Other goblins gathered around, watching the battle with amusement and betting on who would win. It was their favorite pastime. Chaos brought endless joy to these simple souls. However, amidst the excitement, they discussed bringing the prey out to satisfy their desires. Because the old leader had hidden a human girl and had not touched her yet, they started whispering to each other, plotting to find and take her for themselves. Some goblins hesitated because the prey was protected by a different goblin. He was unlike the other goblins, while other goblins wore simple clothes to cover their private parts. He had covered himself with tattered clothes that covered almost his entire body, and his appearance was terrifying, not only because of his clothes but also because of the aura he exuded like a human being. And when the leader died, they believed that this different one would keep the prey for himself. They stared at the strange goblin. They would follow him and snatch the girl when they had the chance. Some smarter goblins, they suggested waiting a little longer because their strongest members had gone ahead to find the prey. They were planning to let the strange goblin fight those guys, then take advantage of the chaos to kill him and finally take the prey for themselves. However, they didn't expect the strange goblin to be able to hear their conversation. Knowing that the girl was in danger, the strange goblin decided to run back to where she was being held captive. With his speed, he easily lost the other goblins. When he arrived at the location, he was horrified to find the rebellious goblins ready to violate the girl. The girl begged for help, her eyes wide with fear. He spoke to them, telling them to release the girl. The leading goblin and refused this request. The leader was dead. He felt like he was the strongest goblin in the group and this prey was his. The strange goblin didn't care about that. He was determined to protect this girl. Seeing this, the big goblin and his henchmen decided to attack and kill the strange goblin. Outnumbered, the strange goblin was quickly subdued, but he didn't give up. He didn't believe that these low-level goblins could defeat him, and more importantly, he didn't want to die here. Seizing the opportunity, he used his weapon to kill the biggest goblin, causing the others to fear. Never before had a goblin used a sharp weapon and attacked like a human being. The strange goblin pointed his weapon at the rest. His words were emotionless, "Leave or die." These words and the image of the giant being killed quickly frightened them. The remaining goblins fled, not forgetting to shout threats. They would return with reinforcements to take him down. When the other goblins left, but the strange goblin still wasn't letting his guard down. Trying to regain his composure, he knew that this was just the beginning of the hellish days to come when he decided to fight against his own kind. This girl's name was Kelia. She supported him and thanked him for saving her once again. She could tell that he was different from the other goblins. He had never harmed her. She hoped he wouldn't die. It is true that a goblin would never protect a human, but there was a deeper reason for the strange goblin's actions. You guessed it right, he was a human a few days ago. Lamthan died in a terrible accident. He didn't expect that instead of meeting God after being hit by a truck, he was transferred to another world with a system. However, his system wasn't fully activated yet. Besides being able to see some stats, it didn't seem to have any other functions, and it seemed quite useless. But since meeting Kelly, she told him about the role of those stats in this world. This world was ruled by gods with many powerful monsters, and humans had demonstrated their role on this continent through absolute power. Unfortunately, the goblin he was reborn as was the weakest and dirtiest monster in this world, and his stats were extremely low, so he would be easily killed by his own kind. Currently, he was level 5, HP 20, Strength 5, Defense 5, and these stats gave him an overall strength of 30. Luckily, his name didn't change. He was still Lamthan. However, there was still a way for him to become stronger here, and that was through mating with girls. In this harsh reality, goblins were capable of becoming stronger through constant mating and procreation. However, they do not have a female gender, so they could only mate with other female creatures. That's why goblins constantly plundered and kidnapped women. Lamthan, a former human, found doing so completely against his morals. But to survive, he had to be stronger. This issue always worried him. Seeing Lamthan's worry, the girl told him not to think too much after spending days with him. She knew that he was completely different from the other goblins and really didn't want to live with them. With a hopeful smile, she promised that when the knights came to rescue her, she would tell them about how he saved her. Because the knights were always fair and just, they would surely agree to let him live in her village. Her optimism gave Lamthine hope. He believed what she said. He was full of hope, even if the system couldn't activate immediately. As long as he persevered until the humans came to rescue them and gained the protection of humans, he could survive. Then he could slowly figure out a way to fully activate the system. However, things weren't as easy as Lamthine had hoped. A scream, a sign of the goblins returning to them. Without hesitation, he ordered Kelia to hide, and she obeyed. Immediately, the first goblin appeared. It charged wildly at Lamthine, screaming that humans had appeared, and that it wanted to mate with the girl to become stronger, because it knew that once it became stronger, it wouldn't be killed. The goblin ran frantically looking for Kelia. However, its haste made it an easy target for Lamthine, who quickly killed the unfortunate goblin. Lamthine quickly informed Kelia that humans were here to save her. Kelia's face lit up with joy. She assumed it was a knight. She said she would go out to check. Lamthine looked at her with concern. The appearance of a knight meant Kelia would be saved and perhaps an opportunity for him to prove his worth. But his excitement was stifled when he saw a knight easily killing the other goblins with his strength. The knight wasn't putting in much effort to deal with the goblins. This human seemed to be venting his anger, clearly complaining that these filthy creatures had ripped his clothes. Seeing the human's stats, Lamthine was incredibly surprised. His name was Loder, level 25 with strength 30 and defense 50, equipped with platinum armor and an iron sword with a total power of 400. This was the highest stat Lamthine had seen since coming to this world, making him question if Loder was actually human. While Lamthine stood in place, amazed at how easily human dealt with the goblins, Kelia excitedly approached, addressing Loder, delighted to see him. However, Lamthine quickly noticed that Loder was raising his sword to attack Kelia. With quick reflexes, he pushed her away from the attack just in time. Despite saving Kelia from death, the sudden attack baffled Lamthine. The Holy Knights were supposed to be here to save people. Why were they attacking Kelia? He assumed that because the cave was quite dark, he had mistaken the girl for a goblin. But that didn't seem to be the case, as Loder angrily expressed his disdain for a goblin having dodged his attack. Kelia quickly tried to explain she was a human, but Loder told her to be silent, because he knew who she was. However, he believed she had been defiled by the goblins, and might even be pregnant with their child. It was laughable to him that someone as filthy as her would expect mercy from him. It would be better for her if she repented her sins and paid for them with death. Kelia begged him, insisting that even though she was captured, she hadn't been defiled by the goblins. Then she pointed to Lamthine, explaining that he was the one who had protected her. But unfortunately, Loder didn't believe a word she said. The idea that a goblin had saved her and wasn't a human enemy was beyond the bounds of a believable story. He raised his sword to end her. Lamthine couldn't believe what he was seeing. He didn't expect things to end so quickly. With no other choice, Lamthine stepped forward, without hesitation pushing Kelia aside and facing Loder. He hoped there would be enough time for Kelia to escape. Lamthine grabbed his crude weapon and lunged at Loder. This was an outcome he hadn't expected, but even if he had to sacrifice himself, he wanted to protect the girl. This could be the act that would prove he was once human. But before the collision, an aura enveloped Lamthine, leaving both him and Loder astonished. This magic came from a woman dressed in white. Her aura exuded holiness and solemnity. She demanded Loder stop because she felt this goblin was strange. This woman was none other than the Saint Ephra. Seizing the opportunity, Kelia crawled over and begged her to save them. Ephra helped Kelia to her feet and presented her to Loder, who had tried to kill her just minutes ago. Then Ephra turned her attention to Lamthine and asked if he could understand what she was saying. Lamthine was trapped within the barrier. According to what Kelia had told him, Ephra was the saint and the spokesperson for the divine temple. She could be his only hope of leaving this place alive. Lamthine quickly responded that he could understand. He took a deep breath and kept saying he wasn't a monster of this world and he used to be human, but he became this way due to an accident. He could explain everything if she took him along. While Loder thought this goblin was just a bit smarter than the others, Ephra smiled. Goblins are usually stupid and lowly creatures. They can't think or speak fluently, but this goblin can speak, and this might be a blessing from the Holy Mother. The holy woman Ephra turned to Kelia and asked her to confirm if this goblin really didn't hurt her. Kelia happily confirmed that Lamthine not only didn't hurt her, but he protected her from other goblins and gave her food. This pleased Ephra. She realized the strangeness of the goblin. She decided to take it back to the temple and study it thoroughly before making any decision. Hearing this, Kelia was very happy because she fulfilled her promise to the goblin. Ephra then turned to Lamthine and asked if he was willing to go with them. Hearing this, Lamthine was very happy. He immediately replied that he was willing. Finally, everything seemed to be getting better for Lamthine because he was with someone who could listen and understand reason. With a snap of her fingers, Ephra quickly broke the barrier that imprisoned Lamthine. Then she ordered everyone to prepare to leave. Lamthine felt a sense of safety about his future, which he was incredibly grateful for. So he immediately approached Ephra to express his gratitude, promising that he would repay her. But as he looked closer at her face, he noticed a cruel smile that took him by surprise. The next thing he heard was a sound he was all too familiar with, a sound of metal-piercing flesh. He knew what was happening, but he turned back in fear. The fear was immediately confirmed. Kelia was killed. The lifeless body lay motionless on the cold ground. Lamthin was stunned, unable to move. The shock was too great. Just as he thought things were getting better, it turned out to be a cruel lie. At this moment, the voice of the woman he thought was the savior rang out along with the cruel laughter. She mocked his naivety and said that his willingly following her was the best way to repay her, and Lamthin understood the cruel reality of this world. A week has passed in the village. The bell tolls, summoning everyone to the town square. As they gather, Loder addresses the assembled villagers, announcing the devastating goblin attack on Bright Town. This incites fury among the villagers. They demand blood for blood, seeing humans and goblins as sworn enemies, exactly the reaction Loder had hoped for. After whipping up their hatred, Loder begins to praise the temple. The knights, he explains, acting on the temple's behalf, have slain these goblins and avenged the villagers. Then the holy maiden Ephra steps forward. With her powers, she creates a dazzling spectacle, urging the villagers to continue praying to the temple. She assures them that the temple will always protect its faithful. Her words instantly sway the villagers, even those previously skeptical. Their faith is reignited, and they turn to the temple with devotion and trust. Later, Ephra returns to her chambers, basking in the success of her speech. It's nothing new. These villagers are the most gullible fools imaginable. They'll pray even harder, worship the temple more fervently, and bring her more offerings. Her smug satisfaction is abruptly interrupted by a voice calling her name. The person who called her name was the goblin Lamthin. He has regained consciousness, and it's clear he's been through hell. Horrifying scars cover his body, and one eye has been gouged out despite his injuries. A burning rage burns in his eye. Ephra ignores his words. A twisted smile plays on her lips. She's amazed by his tenacious spirit. It's been a long time since she'd seen such tenacious life. Perhaps this is why the temple hasn't been able to eradicate all goblins from the continent. Lamthin's return to consciousness excites Ephra. She can continue her experiments, observing how the poison affects him. Lamthin, enraged, repeats his accusations. You tricked me, you killed Kelia. Is this the true face of your temple, the so-called justice humans boast about? His fury is met with Ephra's cruel indifference. She silences him with a sharp thrust of a staff against his mouth. She laughs, mocking his anger. How dare a weak, filthy creature like you, a degenerate goblin, speak of human justice? She claims Kelia was under a spell and dared to speak for him. A betrayal, therefore, death was her final act of loyalty. Goblins are nothing more than insects on this continent, she continues. It's a great honor that the Holy Maiden even speaks to you. Be grateful and use your wretched little body to serve mankind and the temple's experiments. The brutal torture continues, Lamthin helpless to resist the endless, unbearable pain. Even when he falls unconscious, he's quickly awakened by the torment. In his torture, he wonders if he'll die here. He doesn't want to. But he can't blame anyone but himself. He was so foolish. Reborn as a lowly goblin, he had naively believed in humans and the kindness of those not of his kind. His weakness and naivety led to Kelia's death. After he was captured by the villagers, Loder and Ephra tortured and tormented him with every imaginable cruelty. They never believed his words, taking sick pleasure in his suffering. Lamthin's suffering eventually comes to an end. He's tortured to death by the cruel woman. His only wish in his final moments, if he had another chance, was to never trust humans again. If he could do it again, he'd crush their bones and drink their blood, but that was only if he could be reborn. As his consciousness fades, instead of drifting into an endless void, Lamthin awakens in a different space, a place filled with brilliant white light and twinkling stars. His body is fully healed. Before he can ask where he is, a system window appears. It informs him that the Goblin Life simulation system has been activated and he has died. A brief summary of his life flashes before him. Due to your naivety, you forgot you were a goblin. Humans will never trust goblins. You died from torture and abuse. This pain will be engraved in your mind and you will never forget. As a result, you're the most tragic character in the rebirth system. Do you want to start again, yes or no? Lamthin is startled. His system only activated when he died, and this system might allow him to be reborn. But will he be reborn as a low-level goblin this time? The system reminds him if you choose no, your soul will completely dissipate. If you choose yes, you will be reborn into a goblin body 1 week earlier. This made him incredibly excited. A week ago, this was his chance for revenge. He had to get revenge on Loder and Ephra. Of course, he chose to be reborn again. A white light enveloped his body, signaling the start of his Goblin 2.0 life. Lamthin's eyes were now filled with rage. This rebirth was slightly different because this was his Goblin 2.0 life. To help him live longer, the system decided to give him a little more power. Feeling his strength, Lambton smiled with satisfaction. Even if it was just a little, coming back to life was the most important thing. But it seemed this was his only chance because the system immediately warned him of danger. People from the temple were coming, and if he died again, he wouldn't be reborn. This shocked him, but he didn't expect more. Being reborn once was already a miracle. He wasn't strong enough to fight the temple yet, so he immediately asked the system what he could do. The system explained that it was called the Goblin Life Simulation System. It could simulate his life and predict future events. Each different choice would lead to different outcomes. Each simulation required 24 hours to complete. After the simulation, he would earn points from each simulation, which he could use to exchange for items in the system. This made Lambton chuckle. This simulation method meant he could see the future, so he immediately started using the simulation. The system reminder displayed the current situation. Escape the Goblin Cave. To escape, he had to make choices. 1. Warn his goblin friends and unite to face the humans. The reward would be 10 points. 2. Abandon the other goblins and escape on his own. The reward would be 5 points. 3. Hide in the cave and pray the temple people don't find him. The reward would be 0 points. Lambton thought about it. Even though there were 3 options, he was sure that even if all the goblins in the cave united, they couldn't defeat Loader. The battle would end with their deaths, and he wouldn't be able to escape. But he still chose to simulate the first option. He hoped that with the points he earned, he could exchange for a weapon from the shop, and he could kill Loader with a sneak attack. As predicted, after the simulation, all the goblins were killed. The result was a complete failure. The system asked him to think carefully when making decisions and also gave him 10 points. Lambton was happy that he got the points. Even though his plan failed, he quickly opened the system's shop. Many weapons appeared immediately, and he could exchange for them. But the problem was that his points were too low. The only thing he could exchange for was a short knife. It could increase his movement speed by 10% and his strength by 15 points. He grabbed the knife. Those stats were immediately added to his information panel. At this point, Lambton remembered Kelia. He asked why he didn't see her. The system informed him that due to his rebirth, some events in this world had changed. Kelia wasn't captured by the goblins. She was living happily with her family and the village. Knowing this made Lambton very happy. A smile appeared on his face. He felt he had fulfilled his promise to bring her home now. He had no worries on his path to revenge. The thing to do now was to escape and survive. He chose a narrow exit to go out. This place was small, so there would definitely be fewer guards. There were only 2 guards outside. They were discussing their work. These goblins were very weak, so they could easily complete their task. Lambton heard their conversation. He carefully advanced to the entrance of the cave. The 2 guards talked to each other. Since this passage was small, any goblin that ran out would be easy to kill. Loader had asked them to kill any girl who ran out and not let them return to the village. This conversation confirmed Lambton's belief that everyone in the temple was a bunch of bastards who were willing to kill their own people. Therefore, a goblin like him had no reason to be merciful to them. Lambton pinched his nose, trying his best to imitate a woman's voice of distress, and pleaded for help. The guards immediately paid attention to it. They wanted to kill the girl and receive a reward from Loader. One of them entered the cave with a knife behind his back. He told the girl not to be afraid. He was a temple man, and he was here to take everyone home. But instead of a woman, it was Lambton with a sharp knife pointed at the knight. At the exit, the knight noticed the strange behavior of his comrade and decided to check on him. As he approached, he was shocked to see a goblin standing there. In a flash, Lambton threw the knight's body away and then charged toward the terrified knight at incredible speed. His agility allowed him to easily wound the knight, who fell to the ground in pain. The knight, overcome with fear, screamed, "You can speak human." Lambton's sharp steel blade was the only answer to the knight's fear. Knowing he was no match for Lambton's power, the knight realized he was facing death. In desperation, he begged for mercy. He knelt, pleading for compassion, and showed Lambton a picture of his family, hoping for a chance to return to them. He praised Lambton's intelligence, claiming he would understand that he was merely following the orders of the temple. He insisted that he was forced into doing what he did. The knight offered Lambton a bag of gold and a beautiful woman, promising to select the most alluring one for him. However, for a man like Lambton who had been betrayed, these words only fueled his anger. The knight's true nature was exposed. He had planned to use Lambton's hesitation to kill him. But it was all part of Lambton's plan. He swiftly and coldly ended the knight's life. Lambton felt pity for the man's family, but he understood that sometimes ruthlessness was necessary. Evil needed to be eradicated, especially now that he was no longer human. His attention was drawn to a voice coming from the forest. It was Loader and his men heading towards them. Lambton quickly took off the knight's clothes and left in a hurry, promising to find Loader and Ephra soon. Later, Loder and Ephra arrived at the scene. They were stunned to find the bodies of the two temple knights. After examining the bodies, Loder suspected the goblin ambush. The clean, swift cuts were unusual. Ephra thought it was impossible for a regular goblin to kill both knights. She believed a goblin capable of such a feat must be a mutated one. Loder agreed with her assessment. He was furious that the knights could not handle a mutated goblin, and allowing it to escape was a bad sign. Loder, furious, kicked one of the corpses and raged that these knights couldn't handle a mutated goblin. Ephra, her lips licking, couldn't control her excitement and cruelty at the thought of obtaining such a unique specimen for experimentation. Night fell, and the moonlight cast an eerie glow on the forest. Lamthine panted heavily, happy to be alive. He had run until exhaustion, but he couldn't afford to let his guard down. He tried to recover as quickly as possible to continue his journey. He realized that they hated goblins so much, so he would use the goblin way to deal with them. Goblins could upgrade their attributes through mating and cannibalism, both increasing strength and creating stronger generations. Lanathane's mind was consumed with hatred. In this life, he wanted all men to experience only the happiness of death and all women to kneel and weep at his feet, especially Loder and Ephra. But his thoughts were interrupted by the rustling of leaves. He grew worried, thinking it was one of Loder's henchmen still pursuing him. He decided to strike first to gain an advantage without hesitation. Lamthine stood up and charged at his opponent. The unexpected appearance of Lamthine shocked and frightened the stranger, who stumbled backward. Lamthine was shocked to find that this was a goblin. The sound it made him think that it could speak. Inertia made Lamthine also fall forward. After recovering his posture, Lamthine was surprised to find that this goblin had characteristics of a female. Why was a female goblin appearing at this time according to everyone's knowledge? Goblins were only male, reproduced by mating with other creatures. Her presence had changed Lamthine's entire perception. In confusion, his eyes were fixed on the female goblin. She thought he was about to do something. She quickly sat up and begged him not to hurt her, explaining that she was just fetching water. This only made Lamthine more worried. How could this goblin speak complete sentences like him? To find the answer, he used his assessment skill to check her attributes. She was level 3. But her profession was God's messenger. She got the titles of Fallen God, Pure Soul, with attributes Blood 10, Energy 2, Defense 1, with the skills of Devour and Wild Growth. Her overall strength was 10. And Lamthine was surprised to see the special note. When a male goblin combines with a female goblin, it will become the legendary Goblin God. This made Lamthine have an unclean thought, because if he mated with her, he would have immense power. As if seeing the dark thoughts in Lamthine's eyes, the girl backed away in fear. She said she was caught by the Patriarch to fetch water. If she didn't bring the water back, she would be beaten to death by the Patriarch. Seeing the girl scared, Lamthine spoke up and apologized. He said he didn't mean to scare her. He also patted her shoulder to comfort her, saying that if she cried, it would attract the attention of bad people. But the girl didn't care for Lamthine's actions. She was concerned about why Lamthine could also speak in a complete way like her. Her eyes lit up with excitement. Lamthine laughed and nodded. Because of her cuteness, this was reasonable, because ordinary goblins couldn't speak, and maybe she rarely talked to other people in the tribe. However, Lamthine's line of thought was once again interrupted. He noticed the girl was clinging to his cloak. She said Lamthine was good, because the other goblins just beat her up. This was the first time a goblin treated her like this. The girl suggested that Lamthine return to her tribe with her. This surprised Lamthine. He didn't expect there to be a goblin tribe nearby. He still didn't know if the Loder people were chasing them. It wasn't suitable to ABC right now, and he needed to find a safe place to hide. Lamthine's eyes lit up. This was a good opportunity for him to recruit his first followers. Right after that, he suggested that the girl take him to her tribe. The girl agreed without blushing. It seems because this was the first time she met a goblin as handsome as this, she immediately agreed to take him to her camp. Soon after they arrived at the goblin camp, Lamthine's appearance made the other goblins extremely wary, because he was a stranger and dressed like a human, something goblins had never seen before. Lamthine calmly observed. With the number of goblins here, he felt very satisfied, and he decided to start building his kingdom from here. With a calm attitude, he explained to the goblins that he wanted to join them, and he wanted to meet their leader. But this proposal was immediately rejected. That he decided that a freak like Lamthine couldn't meet the Patriarch, that he decided to capture Lamthine and then bring him to see the Patriarch. At this time, the girl worriedly stepped forward to block the goblins. She said that Lamthine was a good person. The commotion had attracted the Patriarch's attention. He inquired about the situation. His appearance surprised Lamthine a little. The Patriarch's name was an old goblin with a staff decorated with many skulls. He looked very ferocious. His appearance was completely different from the goblins Lamthine had seen before. Besides his clothes, he also had very high stats, with level 25, Priest Profession, Blood 102, Mana 29, Defense 17, with the skills of Devour, Summon, Thorn Control. The equipment is Skull Staff and Bone Chains, and has an overall strength of 200. Lamthane's eyes lit up with vigilance. He didn't expect there to be such a strong goblin in this tribe. The goblin leader, after appearing, slowly walked towards Lamthane. He looked at the female goblin, asking if she had brought the stranger back to the camp. The girl, filled with worry, confirmed that she had brought Lamthane to the camp, explaining that he had nowhere else to go. With his terrifying red eyes, the leader praised the girl for doing a good job. But then, to her surprise, he ordered other goblins to grab Lamthane, intending to kill and eat him. The goblins, excited at the prospect of a meal, jumped up in glee. They pushed the girl aside and pointed their weapons at Lamthane. Lamthane immediately pulled out his weapon, commanding them to stop. He claimed to have the ability to create weapons and that joining their tribe would make them stronger. The iron knife in his hand immediately caught the leader's attention. He quickly ordered the other goblins to stop and rush towards Lamthane. He brought his nose close to Lamthane's face, claiming that he smelled deception on him. However, he also wanted to know what kind of weapons Lamthane could create. Using his knowledge of modern technology, Lamthane explained that he could make weapons out of iron, provided they could find iron ore. He promised that with enough time, he could create weapons more powerful than the knife. He thought to himself, this goblin shaman could speak very clearly. It seemed the higher the level of the goblin, the more intelligent they were, seeing the leader's hesitation. Lamthane emphasized that with iron weapons, the tribe would have a chance to win against humans or other monsters. The goblins began to discuss, acknowledging that possessing iron weapons would be incredibly beneficial. They felt that goblins, compared to humans, were weak creatures, but with iron weapons, they could move north to snatch girls for mating. Faced with the immense benefits of iron weapons, the leader agreed to give Lamthane a chance. He demanded that Lamthane find iron ore and create weapons within 3 days, or he would be eaten. Not only him, but the female goblin would be eaten too. Hearing this, the girl became extremely worried. After giving his demands, the leader and the goblin horde left. Comforting the girl, Lamthane looked towards the leader with a hint of anger. He silently judged the leader as a cruel person, willing to kill even members of his own tribe when enraged. Lamthane suppressed his anger, knowing that he couldn't defeat the leader with his current strength. He needed to use this time to create weapons and become stronger. The next day at dawn, Lamthane led the goblins in the tribe to search for iron ore. It was now night, and the moonlight made the forest seem frightening. The female goblin, Gobu, was also with him. She was incredibly exhausted, stating that she couldn't walk anymore. She had been walking all day and was utterly drained. She didn't receive any help from her own kind. Instead, they beat her, calling her ugly and threatening to kill her if she didn't find the iron ore. She kept pleading, but the abuse didn't stop. They wanted to kill her right then and therefore being lazy. Unable to bear the sight, Lamthane picked up a rock and threw it at the head of one of the goblins. This action caused them to look at him with angry eyes. Lamthane explained that he wanted them to follow and help find the iron ore, not to fight. He said he would tell them what iron ore looks like, and that if they wanted to live in return, they should go to the valley ahead and bring back some iron ore. If they didn't listen, he would kill them right then and there. Lamthane took out his knife and glared at the 3 goblins with a terrifying expression. This threat terrified them. As they imagined him killing them with the iron weapon, they rushed off to find iron ore, not forgetting to threaten Lamthane with death if he failed to create weapons. Lamthane thought to himself that sooner or later they would kill him after obtaining iron tools. The task at hand was to become stronger. Looking at Gobu's information, the notification about mating with her to become a goblin god caught his eye. Lamthane decided it was time to do the things adults do. Seeing Gobu crying, Lamthane told her to stop. He sat down beside Gobu and asked her if she wanted to follow him. He promised to protect her, feed her, give her a warm home, and ensure no one would bully her. The girl was confused at these words, asking if he was telling the truth. Looking at the girl sincerely, Lamthane affirmed that everything he said was true. However, he was currently too weak to prevent further bullying. He needed to become stronger, and Gobu was the only one who could help him. The girl, confused, asked what she could do to help him become stronger. Lamthane felt a little embarrassed, but he said that if they mated, he would become stronger. This made the girl's face turn red. The girl looked at Lamthane with suspicion, asking if he was telling the truth. She said she had never tried this before. Lamthane was also a little flustered about bringing up this topic. He reassured her that everything would be fine and that he would help her if she wanted it. Without waiting for her response, Lamthane gently kissed her soft lips and then laid her down on the ground. The girl, embarrassed, agreed, saying she would bear his children. Then, naughty sounds echoed through the air. At the same time, notifications appeared one after another, informing him that mating had raised his current level to level 7, and the sound of upgrading echoed. The increase in level also increased his attributes. After a while, Lamthane's body began to change, his muscles becoming more defined. He was now level 7 with 40 HP, 10 strength, 6 defense, and a total strength of 65. Lamthin was surprised at the change in his body, thought that if he continued like this, he could defeat the goblin leader. Lamthin warmly stroked Gobu's head. He told her
Amazing. That was amazing.
He told her that she was his wife now, and he would protect her forever. The girl blushed and exhausted, thanked Lamthin, calling him a good person. At this moment, a cry for help caught their attention. Looking in that direction, they saw a goblin running towards them in fear, followed by a large wolf. What caught Lamthin's attention was the iron ore in the goblin's hand. He didn't expect to find iron ore here, but before he could get it, he had to deal with this problem first. Lamthin immediately grabbed his knife. He asked Gobu to wait there for him. Gobu looked at Lamthin with trust, reminding him to be careful. For Lamthin, this wolf was a test of his strength. The wolf was about to catch the unfortunate goblin, who was desperately trying to escape. But Lamthin suddenly appeared. Wielding his sharp iron knife, charging directly at the large wolf, the fleeing goblin was completely taken aback by this action. Then it was filled with fear when it saw Lamthin kill the wolf with one blow. In the goblin's eyes, Lamthin had become a terrifying figure. When Lamthin asked it to give him the iron ore, it immediately handed it over, overwhelmed with fear. Holding the iron ore in his hand, Lamthin laughed with delight at the high quality of the ore. Now they needed more of this, and after they returned, he would make weapons for the goblins and the tribe. 2 days later, Lin, with the assistance of the other goblins, successfully crafted his spear with an iron blade. Though it lacked elegance, it was a significant achievement for Lin and the goblins. They were amazed that Lin could forge a weapon from iron, but were skeptical about its effectiveness. To demonstrate its power, Lin effortlessly plunged the spearhead into the tough skull of the tribe's most formidable enemy, the #1 crocodile wolf. The spearhead pierced through with ease, leaving the goblins in awe. The goblin Lin had saved previously was ecstatic, pointing at the crocodile wolf's corpse and exclaiming how Lin had killed it in mere seconds with the iron weapon. The other goblins agreed that the iron spear was far superior to their crude stone spears. As they excitedly discussed, Lin raised the spear high and asked if they wanted weapons like this. Without hesitation, the goblins shouted excitedly, hailing him as a god. Only one goblin, the leader, was not pleased. He was furious that a newcomer had stolen his respect. If you also think that the Arlen is overpowered, then hit the subscribe and leave a like as it helps the channel a lot. The leader slammed his skull-headed staff onto the ground, his red eyes glowing with menace. He admitted that creating an iron weapon was a miracle, but declared it wasn't enough for Lin to stay in the tribe. The leader demanded that Lin create 50 iron spears within 2 days. After issuing his demand, the leader stormed off. Though the other goblins disagreed with this harsh condition, they didn't dare object. They felt the leader was too cruel and decided to help Lin complete the task. Lin wasn't surprised by the condition. He laughed confidently, seeing it as a chance to earn the respect of the other goblins, a good step forward in his plan. Over the next 2 days, Lin and the goblins worked tirelessly. They gathered iron ore, smelted it in makeshift furnaces, and hammered out spearheads. The goblins, though initially unskilled, learned quickly under Lin's guidance. They worked in shifts day and night, driven by a mix of fear and admiration for Lin. On the day of delivery, Lin had completed the 50 iron spears. The tribe's goblins were overjoyed that Lin could stay. The leader, with a cunning smile, admitted he was satisfied with Lin's work and allowed him to stay to celebrate Lin joining the tribe. The leader announced a feast and demanded everyone's participation. The goblins began dancing and celebrating immediately. The feast took place around a bonfire. Gabu, one of the younger goblins who had been particularly helpful to Lin, cut a piece of pork and brought it to him, offering him the best part. Lin happily accepted, enjoying the camaraderie. But soon after eating, a sharp pain struck him. Lin fell to the ground in agony, and Gabu was terrified. It was clear that Lin had been poisoned. The poisoner was none other than the leader, who approached Lin with an evil smile. He taunted Lin, calling him foolish. The leader revealed that he knew Lin's true intentions and said those who challenged his authority would only find themselves in hell. Before Lin could respond, the leader grabbed Gabu's hair, pulling her close. He said he knew Lin cared about her and wanted to make him suffer by killing her in front of him. A red line of blood appeared on Gabu's neck as the leader's claws pierced her skin. But then, a red stream of blood spurted out not from Gabu, but from the leader as his arm was cut off. Lin had done it. The leader, now fearful, asked how Lin could move after being poisoned. Lin smiled, explaining that he was always vigilant against villains and had only pretended to be affected by the poison. The system had warned him about the poisoning. Enraged, the leader had no choice but to fight. With one arm lost, his fighting power decreased. He attacked Lin with a bone chain, but Lin, with his speed, easily dodged and counterattacked. Lin's iron knife struck the leader's head, killing him. The goblins, seeing their leader dead, were terrified. Lin declared himself the new leader, promising to make them a powerful tribe with plenty of meat. Lin hugged Gabu and raised his knife high, asserting his supremacy over the tribe. The goblins, simple-minded creatures, focused on meat and mating, readily agreed to Lin's leadership. As a reward for their loyalty, Lin offered them the leader's corpse. The goblins devoured it savagely, a sight that disgusted Lin, but he understood it was the reality of their lives. His priority now was building the tribe and nurturing the next generation to make them stronger. This was just the first step in his revenge. Amidst the chaos, no one noticed a pair of eyes watching from afar. A golden-haired elf girl observed the scene, her eyes wide with curiosity and concern. She wondered what was happening in this goblin tribe. The female elf came running towards her tribe while she landed onto a ground, and the servant was happy to see that the princess was back. The lady put her cloak down and started going towards the clan mother. Seeing this, the servant elf wanted to stop her, but she did not listen and told her that she had something important to report. She barged inside the room of the clan mother, while screaming that she had a report for her, that the demonization of the East in the forest. But as soon as she entered, she was flustered by what fell into her eyes. She saw that the clan mother was eating grapes like Tyrion from the Game of Thrones, except he was a dwarf and she is an elf. Multiple male elves were giving pleasure to the lady. The clan mother saw the princess and immediately asked her what happened, calling her Kasana. We come to know that the clan mother was also the mother of the Kasana. She immediately started saying sorry for barging in so suddenly, and told her mother that she still had something to do, so she will leave first. But the mother immediately stopped her daughter from going away, while asking her about why she came to see her in such a hurry, and asked her if there was something urgent to tell. Hearing this, Kasana immediately remembered about why she came to the clan mother in the first place. She told her that she had some important things to report to her about the goblin tribe in the forest, but the lady just smiled while not able to understand about how the weak, dirty, and low-level goblins can do something that it was so important. Hearing this, Kasana started explaining to the clan mother that this morning, she found the black-haired giant there that had been chewed up in the demonized forest. There were even traces of fighting and hunting at the scene, and the surrounding area was covered with goblin footprints, as if they were made by those goblins in the demonized forest. Added to that, the black-haired giant bear was almost the most ferocious monster in the whole forest, so logically speaking, it was impossible for a goblin to kill a monster of this level by themselves. Kasana even saw the old leader of the goblin tribe being killed by another young goblin just a few days ago, so maybe the goblin's strange behavior had something to do with him. The clan mother was serious for a while as she was thinking about the new leader of the goblin, and it seemed that the number of goblins in the forest was also almost recovered. Finally, the grandmother ordered Kasana to take a few people to clean up the goblins, but she wanted her to not kill them all at once and to leave a few of them alive, because the medicine made from the raw goblin heart was the best tonic for the male stamina in the tribe. Hearing this, the daughter was now blushing intensely, but the mother just smiled, telling her daughter that she had worked hard these days, so her mother will reward her with an elf boy tonight, and she can also demand something else if she wanted. But hearing this, the elven girl immediately started running away from the room, while telling her mother that she was going to go out tonight, and she will report back to her if she saw anything else. As the scene shifts, we see that a fire was lit and the goblins were discussing and making a map of the elven tribe treehouse. One goblin informed Lin that there were about 30 elf tree houses in the whole forest, and they were all very tall. Hearing this, Lin complimented them, telling them that they did well and that he will reward them with 2 elves when they defeat the elves tribe. Lin wanted everyone to sharpen the iron tools again and get ready. Hearing that they will get 2 elves, the goblins immediately started praising Lin, telling him to live long. One of the goblins immediately told their boss, Lin, that he will go and ask the brothers to prepare their weapons and get ready to fight, while Lin was looking at the fire and the branch map that the goblins made. He started thinking that if the elves had 30 wooden houses, then based on an average of 2 elves in each wooden house, there were 60 elves. If he included the dozen or so that occupy the mine's site, then there were at least more than 70 elves for them to deal with. Since the death of the old goblin priest, Lin had led the goblin to the mine for weapons and to hunt monsters to increase their level. He remembered the day of the rebellion when he told all the goblins that they will go to the demonized forests to kill monsters and level up. Lin was the one who killed the black-haired monster who was lying into the forest, while he acquired the skill of giant tusk attack. The goblins were also mining and fighting with the monsters and acquired the skill of stone-like skin, which increased their defense by 15. Lin and Gabu also acquired the silent step skill, which made them more agile as they defeated all the monsters. The goblins also hunted multiple serpents and anacondas, acquiring the skills to secrete venom in the process through the goblins' swallowing skills. The entire tribe has gained many skills, and the overall level has also improved drastically. We see that one of the goblins was also level 18, and he had the title of Warcraft Killer. along with his life points of 231 and strength of 29. He had the defense of 40, along with skills which included gene-devouring, iron-blooded wolf nature, giant fangs, venom secretion, and many more. It also had the equipment including a simple iron sphere and simple plate armor. The whole goblin tribe has now had the combined combat power of 250 each. But Lin knew that the combined combat power of each elf was around 200. Realizing this, Lin gave a cute smile, while thinking that his tribe's overall strength has surpassed that of the elves. Suddenly, Lin got a notification that the simulator cooldown time was now finished. While Lin thought that after all, the sneak attack that they were planning on the elves' territory was dangerous, so it was better to be cautious. He immediately started this system to run a simulation. Finally, the goblin simulator has started, and the plot was set to the night before the raid. The simulation started telling Lin that he led the greatly increased goblin army to the elf tribe for a sneak attack, and he was fully confident that the attack will be successful. But unexpectedly, they were ambushed by the elves in advance, leading the goblin army into a trap, and then they shot the goblins dead. And after they were caught by the elf clan mother, they were hanged in the forest to show off to all the goblins. The overall summary of the simulation was that Lin thought that it was a perfect plan, but it was actually within the control of the elves. So Lin got 0 points for this plan, and the rewards were also none. Lin was shocked to know that this was the ending they were going to get, but he knew that there was only one possibility for this outcome to arrive so surely. He immediately realized that the tribe was already being monitored by the elves, so he decided to use the well-developed senses of hearing and smell and started scanning the area, because he knew that as long as he concentrated, he should be able to find some clues. But suddenly, Lin heard something and looked towards the forest. He saw a crimson-red light coming from it. Finally, he found the real problem and was happy that he did so. As the saying shifts and the night falls deeper, we see that the elves were running towards their tribe in the hope of reporting the clan mother that the goblins actually want to attack the tribe. Even they did not expect that the goblin tribe has already undergone such a big change in just a few days. But suddenly, as the Cassandra was jumping through the trees, she was grabbed by a goblin as she started screaming in pure horror and disgust. As the scene shifts, we see that the whole group of elves was now ambushed by the goblins, while the princess was not even able to sit back and support her body. Meanwhile, the goblins were drooling over their mouths as they saw that there was a female elf in the whole group who looked so tasty. Cassandra wanted to stand up once again, but it was as if her body was not moving. She wondered if Goblin used some kind of poison in their arrows, but it was too late because Lin was already there. As he started mocking Cassandra, telling her that he did not expect himself to catch the elven lady so easily, Lin made a serious and terrifying face while he told the lady that she arrived at the right time. And with that, this chapter comes to an end. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like aim is 1,500 likes. Comment part 3 below for the next part. Also consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially, and I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.